We have a new and heartbreaking account of what happened aboard a Carnival cruise ship to an 18-year-old girl allegedly killed by her own stepbrother. Anna Kepner's dad is now reportedly revealing shocking new information about what he saw the day his daughter's body was found. Kepner's 16-year-old stepbrother could spend decades in prison for what he allegedly did. He was the only one seen entering the room with Anna, allegedly on the night that she died. What his defense might be as he awaits trial, and he does it as a free person. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, real quick, I want to tell you about this app, Upside, that gets you cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, and takeout. All you do is download Upside for free, claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations, then pay like you typically would with your card. You verify the purchase, then you get money back. I use it on gas, I use it on takeout. I search for offers first. Then after I spend, money appears in my app and I just transfer it straight to my bank. Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code and use promo code OTC to get an extra 25 cents bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Unless you lived it, no one can truly understand the pain of a family in mourning, having to sit in a courtroom and listen to every terrible detail of what happened to their loved one. It's something Anna Kepner's father says he is not going to do if and when his 16-year-old stepson, Timothy Hudson, goes on trial. Right now, Hudson is slated to stand trial on June 1st on charges that he killed Anna Kepner as well as sexually assaulted her aboard a Carnival cruise ship in November. The teenager is being tried as an adult in federal court. This is video of Hudson entering federal court in Miami back in February when he was still considered a minor in the legal system. He had a lawyer by his side. This video per WTVJ television. And even though he is facing horrific allegations, he's still allowed to live with family members instead of being held in jail before a trial. Now we're going to get into why Christopher Kepner, Anna's dad, says he is not going to go to that trial in just a moment. And we'll also talk about someone else who he says will not be in the courtroom and what that could mean for the defense in this case. But I want to talk about how we got to this point. By now, you probably know Anna Kepner and what allegedly happened to her, this high school senior from Titusville, Florida, about 3 hours north of Miami. In November, Kepner joined her family on a cruise. Her grandparents told ABC News that this trip was a celebration of a blended family coming together. You have Anna's dad, Christopher Kepner, and he married a woman named Chantel Hudson, and she is the mom of Timothy Hudson. Now, Christopher Kepner has had some strong words for his stepson that we'll talk about here in just a moment. The family was aboard this Carnival cruise ship. It's called the Horizon, and it was a cruise that was going to last about a week. They hit a couple spots in the Caribbean. But then the night before the cruise came to an end, Anna's grandparents told ABC News that she said she wasn't feeling well, so she decided to go back to her stateroom early. The next morning, family members, as they woke up and Anna was nowhere to be found, they heard an announcement about a medical emergency on the loudspeaker. And that's when crew members found 18-year-old Anna Kepner dead in her stateroom. She was allegedly stuffed under a bed and she had life jackets covering her. Now, this is video that was taken by Sheldon Fox, a reporter with WSVN in Miami, showing Kepner's body being taken off of the ship when it arrived back in Miami. An autopsy found that Anna Kepner died of what's called mechanical asphyxiation. Someone had put her in a chokehold and killed her. The only other person allegedly in that room with Anna that night was her stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. Now, Anna's parents allegedly had them share a stateroom, and that has been a point of contention. According to a separate custody case that's been playing out involving Anna's stepmom, who is Timothy's biological mom, Chantel Hudson, said she did not give Timothy his medication for insomnia and ADHD on the night that Anna died. Now, we don't know if any of that will factor into Timothy's defense. Anna's grandparents told ABC that Timothy's claiming he doesn't remember anything that happened. Quote, in his own words, says he does not remember what happened. You have to wonder how strong of a defense, though, that could be, considering what we know about the allegations of this case. Now, the family dynamic, that is going to play a huge role in how this plays out in federal court. And not only will Christopher Kepner not be there for the trial, he told the Daily Mail that his wife, Chantel Hudson, she's not going to be there either. She's Timothy Hudson's biological mom. Now, her son is facing a charge of first-degree murder and a charge of aggravated sexual assault. And it's possible that Anna's stepmom and Anna's dad will be called as witnesses. Christopher told the Daily Mail that he saw his daughter's body in the stateroom where she was allegedly found by crew members. He was one of the first people to see her. And again, she was allegedly strangled to death and then stuffed under a bed, covered with life jackets. He said, quote, "I checked her pulse. I pulled her out from under the bed. I knew my daughter was dead long before the medical examiner got there." He went on to say, quote, "I've heard all the evidence. I saw it for myself. They have everything they need. It's going to be too painful to relive it all again." The Daily Mail says the night that Anna was killed, her half-brother was also staying in the room with her and Anna's stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. But that half-brother, he went to sleep not knowing that Anna's body was still in the stateroom. The next morning, he allegedly went to the family breakfast, the Daily Mail says, with Timothy Hudson, and it sounds like it was as if nothing had happened. And then when Anna didn't show up for breakfast in the morning, that's when people started looking for her and they made this horrible discovery. Now, you talk about Timothy's defense, and he's claiming he has no idea what happened. At least that's what we're hearing through the grandparents with their interview to ABC News, as well as what Christopher Kepner has been saying in interviews. In a previous one, Christopher Kepner had some very strong words for his stepson. He told the Daily Mail last month, quote, "I want to see him in an orange jumpsuit." And a point of pretrial contention has been that Timothy is living with his uncle and he's wearing a GPS monitor, but he doesn't have to be in jail, even though he is accused of murder and accused of an aggravated sexual assault of his stepsister. Now, the conditions of him living with his uncle, those were in place when he was being tried as a minor, but now things have changed because he is now considered an adult in the legal system, and prosecutors say they want him in pretrial detention. They wrote in a motion, quote, "He is a danger to others and should be held in pretrial detention." And they go on to say there is no assurance any court could have that any conditions or combination of conditions would be sufficient to prevent the defendant from being a danger to others. Christopher Kepner told the Daily Mail that Timothy hasn't apologized to him for what happened to his daughter, and he also says that he and his wife have not spoken to Timothy since December when he went to live with his uncle. So Timothy Hudson has been out of contact with his own mother, Chantel Hudson. Christopher said that Timothy is a danger and he should be in custody. So here's what we know about the evidence that could put this teen in federal prison for decades. On March 10th, the federal government filed an indictment against Timothy Hudson. It was just unsealed, and it shows that the teenager is facing charges of first-degree murder and that charge of aggravated sexual abuse. And it alleges that Hudson, quote, "did knowingly and unlawfully perpetrate and attempt to perpetrate a murder that is the willful, deliberate, malicious, and premeditated killing of AK, with malice aforethought, meaning he allegedly planned it, and that this, according to prosecutors, was not a split-second act." Now, count two is that aggravated sexual abuse, and the indictment alleges that Hudson, quote, "did knowingly cause AK to engage in a sexual act and did so by the use of force against AK." That decision to charge him as an adult, to try him as an adult, that became official on April 10th. And many of the documents related to this case were unsealed, giving us a glimpse into what prosecutors have moving towards a trial. And we're learning that the government has evidence, according to a discovery filing that was also unsealed, showing that federal prosecutors turned over to the defense autopsy photographs, x-rays, the full medical examiner's report with notes, and an extraction of someone's cell phone, and that is believed to be Anna's father, Christopher Kepner's cell phone. There were also 4 body camera videos from the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Department that will be used, and FBI timelines created by a special agent assigned to the case. Authorities have also allegedly used 3D crime scene reconstruction technology to show how Kepner's body was allegedly found in that stateroom. Timothy Hudson is slated to go on trial June 1st. Joining us now to talk about this case is former Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg. Always great to have you here on Law and Crime. This June 1st trial date, I want to start there. I know a lot, emotion can come up to delay a trial, but just in terms of looking at the calendar, what will determine whether or not that actually will be the date that Timothy Hudson would go on trial?
Well, it depends if he demanded speedy trial, and right now he hasn't waived his right to speedy trial. So they could insist on putting their foot on the gas and requiring the prosecutors to try the case on June 1st. But I suspect it's going to be delayed at some point. These things often do. It just, you have these 2-3 week trial periods that are set up, and June 1st is the start of that window. It's I believe it's a 2-week trial period here. But I don't know, a high-profile case like this, at the seat of jury, you've got to get all your ducks in a row. I can see that this could be delayed somewhat.
Christopher Kepner, who's Anna Kepner's dad, I can't imagine what a parent would be going through. I mean, these were people who were going on a cruise and then, living private lives. And then now everybody is talking about, your daughter who ends up being murdered on this cruise. He says he's not going to go to the trial. Family support, does that have any impact typically on how, how a trial could play out?
Oh, as far as the fact that the father is going to be involved, the actual birth father?
Yeah, that he says he is not going to go to the trial, will not be in the room. Also, the birth mom of Timothy Hudson, which is the interesting family dynamic here, Chantel Hudson, stepmom of Anna Kepner, says the two of them say that they're just not going to go to the trial, feel like they've seen the evidence, prosecutors have enough. Does that, though, as a prosecutor, do you need to have the family in the courtroom? Is that something that might have an impact on the jury whatsoever if it gets to that point?
The evidence is so strong here. I don't think you need to have the family there. Perhaps it's useful if the evidence is weaker, then you can play upon the sympathies of the jury. But in reality, prosecutors are not going to file this case unless they believe they can get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a heavy burden, but it's a burden they can reach. They've got a lot of evidence here, and the defense doesn't have much except for saying he blacked out, so that means he has no mens rea, no intent. But you could still be convicted of very serious crimes, even if you didn't intend to kill someone. So I think this thing is headed towards justice, a guilty verdict in my mind, and I don't think it matters if the family's in the courtroom physically or not.
Christopher Kepner also told the Daily Mail, he talked about, and again, this is tough. If, any parent who would have to go through this, I'm sympathetic to it of, finds his daughter, she's dead. He says he pulled her out from underneath the bed, knew that she was dead before EMTs were able to arrive. Is that the type of witness you would want as a prosecutor? He says he doesn't want to go to the trial, but how likely is it that he may find himself on the stand? I also just think of the family dynamic that's at play and how much that could go into the story that prosecutors are going to tell.
I mean, he's an important witness. I mean, he's the one who found the body, and so he'll be compelled to testify. Now, here's the thing. The fact that he's testifying also means there's a rule invoked, which means he can't be in the courtroom for the trial to see other witnesses because that could influence your own testimony. So the fact that he is a material witness in the case means that this is not a question of whether he should be there for sympathy. It's a question of whether he's even allowed to be in the courtroom while others are testifying. And so it's a balance, because if he wanted to be there, he's a survivor here. He's a victim's family member, but at the same time, he's a material witness. But it's less complicated now that he does not want to be there to see the other testimony. I mean, I don't blame him. Everyone grieves in their own ways, and it must be very difficult for a family member to have to deal with watching this all over again, to go through the trauma of reliving it all over again. So I respect his wishes here.
When it comes to the defense, and I know we've talked about this before, and officially we don't know what Timothy Hudson's defense will be. We do know the grandparents spoke to ABC News and have said that he says he doesn't remember, that he blacked out. Christopher Kepner, who's Anna Kepner's dad, he also told the Daily Mail something similar to that just seems to be the story that Timothy Hudson was telling this 16-year-old after Anna Kepner was found dead. Why is that not a defense? Typically, I blinked and this happened and I have no idea how it happened. Why is that something that it seems like a very high bar to reach if that were to be successful?
Yeah, it is, but they're trying to get one of the elements removed from first-degree murder. And if they can remove that mens rea, that intentional element, then he would not be found guilty of first-degree murder, the most serious crime, which could lead to life in prison. He's going to say that he was not in control of his actions. He lacked the specific intent. Okay, and that could mean that he would be found not guilty. You have to show premeditation. You have to show what's called malice aforethought to get convicted for that. So that's why they're trying to use this impulse or blackout, narrative to try to knock it down to second-degree murder or manslaughter, which is even less. So I think it's probably smart because the evidence is so strong that he killed Anna that it would be, I think, foolish to say that, no, he wasn't. Some other mysterious, real killer is the one who did it. So they're being smart and trying to get a lesser offense.
Because if the defense was able to come out, maybe if that's the defense they go with, and they are able to present him to a jury as a sympathetic figure, this is just a 16-year-old boy, he blacked out, he had no idea what happened. Like, as a prosecutor, how do you counter that?
Well, you can count on the fact that the defense is going to lean into the fact that he was a minor at the time. They're going to say this poor, then 16-year-old, you're trying him as an adult. This is an overreach by the government, and they'll dress him up in like a Menendez Brothers sweater or a Nicholas Cruz oversized glasses to try to infantilize him. Yeah. I think that's going to happen for sure. Now, as a prosecutor, you focus on the evidence and the fact that and the fact that the victim herself was a young girl who should never have lost her life like this, and how this is more than just a situation where he blacked out, but that there's premeditation. There shows some planning. Shows some attempt to escape liability, escape arrest by trying to hide the body, by lying. You want to show that he acted inappropriately with Anna previously. Remember, Anna has an ex-boyfriend who said that, that guy, the stepbrother, right, he was hitting on Anna back then. And so that's kind of stuff that will influence a jury.
And the other part of it too, and I want to be delicate with how I phrase this, but it is one of the charges that he's facing. To argue if there was a self-defense argument or something along those lines that the defense wanted to go with, I don't know if they have that, but if they were, the fact that he is facing, and there is allegedly evidence that proves that she was sexually abused, how does that impact how the defense could try and, if they were going to go with the self-defense, it just doesn't feel like if you have that as well, that you'd be able to be successful in making that argument.
It's so important because it's also an anchor for the charge of felony murder. Remember, there are different ways you can get convicted of murder here. And if the murder is during the commission of another serious crime, like aggravated sexual abuse, then he goes down for both of them. So that's where it's important. It's not just important for its own sake to show that he committed sexual abuse and hold him accountable for it, but it's also important to bring in the murder case, even if you show that he didn't have the intent to kill her. He can still be found guilty of murder. Plus, just by showing facts that he allegedly sexually assaulted her, all that goodwill that the defense is going to try to create by the fact that he's this young man, this boy who just had medical issues and blacked out, that's not going to play with a jury who believes that he committed aggravated sexual abuse of poor Anna.
What do you make of the fact that he is out right now? And I know he's on a GPS monitor. He's at his uncle's house. Apparently, he has done everything to a T. That was the plan when the arrangement when he was being tried as a juvenile. But now that he's facing these charges in adult court, I think the question so many people have is like, how is he able to not be in pretrial detention right now?
Yeah, there's always a deference to pretrial release. That's this federal system. It's even the state system. And when you're a juvenile, you do get the benefit of the doubt for that. I understand why people would want him to be behind bars. After all, he's being charged with the most serious of crimes. Most people who are charged with first-degree murder are not released pretrial. But this is an unusual circumstance because he's 16 years old at the time. And also, he was given pretrial release out on bond for months. And remember, he had GPS monitoring at his uncle's home without a single violation. So that's why I'm not too caught up about it. I don't think he's a flight risk. I don't think he's a danger to the community. I think he should be held accountable for his actions. But at the same time, I'm not going to lose sleep on the fact that he's got this pretrial release.
And when it comes to just kind of going back to his defense, and if the defense that they go with is something along the lines of he doesn't remember what happened, he blacked out. Like right. On the prosecutor's side, because I know his mom in the civil trial that had been going on, the custody case, she had said he had ADHD and insomnia. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how that contributes, if that would play a role in somebody blacking out and not knowing what happened if they allegedly killed somebody. But how do you as a prosecutor, or I guess maybe more so from the defense, like, does there need to be a diagnosis or something to actually give basis to that whatsoever, other than just saying, I just don't remember what happened?
It'll be expert testimony. It'll be the battle of the experts, which can sometimes create reasonable doubt because if the jury's like, oh, that expert says this, the other expert says this, how do I know for sure? So you need corroboration. You need to show amount of evidence so that the jury thinks, yeah, one of these doctors is legit, the other one's a quack. That's what you're hoping as a prosecutor. Now, it's interesting that the medical examiner said that she died because she had been put in a bar hold, a chokehold. So when he says that I blacked out, I don't remember it. Well, it shows some intent when you choke someone like that. Now the defense is going to counter. They're going to bring in their own experts to say, well, this was a struggle that went too far rather than a deliberate execution. And so this is why it will always evolve into a battle of experts. By the way, just as an aside, to hear the explanation about what was his insomnia as a result, it reminds me of whenever a celebrity gets in trouble and does something stupid, they always cite what they say, dehydration and lack of sleep or something like, all right. I think the public is pretty aware of these excuses, and I don't think they're going to buy it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Eventually when it gets to this point, on the expert front of it, and this is a completely different case, but I remember like Karen Reed, there was that argument of like, is this a dog bite expert? Like, is this someone that should be allowed to actually testify? Like, how can that impact the timeline of all of this? If the defense is bringing in these experts, then you have the prosecutors saying like, I just don't think that this person should be able to speak in front of a jury.
Yeah, you got to get the expert to be allowed to testify. They just can't bring in any quack from the streets. You have to have someone with credentials who the judge will say, okay, you're allowed to testify. But then the prosecution can poke holes and say, you testify on behalf of the defense in every case, right? 100 cases all on behalf of the defense, and you always say the same thing. So that can discredit an expert because then it just sounds like a hired gun rather than objective medical authority.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens next. June 1st on the calendar right now. Unclear if we'll be talking about a trial on that day, but we'll see what happens. Dave Ehrenberg, always great to have you here on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. See you next time.